which kind of leads into
It leads in well, right, into the next slide, which, really talks about some of the discounting at the top of the supply chain, and so we, Apex Trading, we operate across, I think 19 state markets now, but I chose four. And I chose four kind of distinct reasons, right? I wanted to choose Montana because it's one of the newest adult use markets relative to actually having decent volume, right? Then you've got California, one of the oldest, right, adult use markets. And then you kind of have Maine and Massachusetts, while positioned in New England, are a little bit different, right? Going through a little bit different changes and a little bit of evolution within those markets, and supply and demand's a little bit different too. I think in generally what was interesting as I looked at this data, right, is that, you know, as you average it out, um, you know, all wholesale of all the line items that we were seeing in a specific state, in general, 20% of those were discounted. Now, I isolated and removed samples and freebies and all that stuff. These are like true discounts. These are things that are less than 60% in general, which we feel is more of that indicative of what that would be, right? Now, I don't think it's a shock to anybody that overall bulk flower is the highest discounted category. Again, it's the one, like we were talking about, furthest away from the demand signal, right? And tends to oversupply rather quickly, right? And reactionary to the market. And then I think it also is this idea of like the newer the state is, the less overall discounts occur. But what is discounted is about the same, right? Proportion. So we're still discounting edibles or extracts around 15 and 20%. But in a new state, only, maybe I guess that would be for Montana, 4% of products of all the lines sold in wholesale, only 4% were discounted, but they carried the same level of discount as the same categories in other states, right? Which was, I think, really interesting. And so when you think about like the cause and effect of this, there's a lot of factors, right? And I don't think I have all of them here, and I'm sure Andrew can think of some too from the retail level, right? The first is this aging inventory due to oversupply, right? And there's further slides that kind of talk about retailers like overstocking or over purchasing, right? And what this leads into is this false assumption of demand up the supply chain, right? And so you tend to think, oh, this is selling, so let's produce, maybe a little more, right, to meet the demand. And really what you're finding is, oh, the retailer's actually overstocking and discounting our inventory out to move it, right? Which gives us a false signal around demand, right? So I think there's that. And then obviously really the natural thing, we all see more operators come online, people increase canopy spaces, they start to see like short-term sales success. They say, let's double our canopy, right? Everyone does it at the same time, oversupply happens, right? Which is the nature of what we've seen in most markets in that side. I think the other thing that really gets into it is this idea of like fear, right? This think of like, okay, margins, retailer needs better margins. There's this downward pressure at retailers, fierce competition there. I have to react, I have to react, I have to react. And the only way that I can protect my revenue or open more doors or things is to start to come down and discount heavier, right? That's they fall into this trap of like, okay, this is what everyone's doing. This is what I need to do, right? And then ultimately, you just erode the overall value of the category supply and SKUs across the category, right? All SKUs, not just yours. It's all everyone, right? And so you're coming and setting it, and then you're starting to ripple back, right? As retailers react and as market compresses, right? And that side.
Yeah. Can I ask you, John, there, just while we're at it with the
Yeah.
question, putting it in the minds of a retailer who's responding to a wholesaler who is giving them, hey, here's a discount on my invoice, here's that thing. The incentive of the wholesaler or that specific sales rep at that wholesaler distributor, that specific transaction, what do you think is the driving thing that they're trying to solve for by giving the retailer the credit on the invoice?
I think for them is they're under pressure to move the product out, right? Like they are under, okay, if you're a cultivator, you have new cycles coming down, there's always harvest, there's always production coming down, right? They're looking there and they're under pressure to say, you have to move this inventory, we have to get this out, right? And so I think on the individual sales rep, their motivation is, well, obviously at the top, they need me to move the inventory, right? They're willing to do these things. On my side, right, I get paid on sales. So like, I don't really care about necessarily, unless it's the business is smart and built in some margin piece where you get paid more based on the profit margin, but mostly it's like just off the accrual, right? You're getting a commission. The sales reps incentivized to push as much inventory as they can, right? They're not traditionally, right? That's their motivation. It isn't like, oh, I want to make sure that retailer only orders exactly this, and I'm going to have them order less than they probably should. I don't really think reps are coming at that kind of conversation. So I think it's internal pressure to move the inventory and get it out. And then also it's personal that, hey, I want to make money, right? And I get money based on sales, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can convince this retailer based on dangling this bulk discount or this whatever incentive to order that extra pound or that extra case, right? Even if I know they maybe don't need it, you know?
Yeah, and it's that like incremental transactional nature of those like one-on-one interactions to do those incentives that ultimately bleeds into this, right? Where you're at a state where eventually you get to the place where 20% of all the items of the entire market have some sort of discount attached to them.
Yeah, and it's like I think there's, from we were at Canada DataCon, right? I can't remember exactly what his name who was, but one of the CEOs, I think it was of Natty Rims, right, in Colorado, really specifically brought up a topic that I was shocked at. Was like, I don't let sales reps interact with my purchasing team or my floor team, right? It all goes centralized because I don't want any of their and that individual preference or personal bias to come into it. It's all about the corporation. It's all about the business, right? And we're going to dictate buying. And I don't even want reps coming doing pop-ups or education at the stores. To me, that I thought that was profound. I was like, holy shit, I've never heard this before. Like, that seems kind of like you'd think you'd want budtenders being educated and engaging more in this. And then when he broke it down from a business standpoint, that made a lot of sense, right? Because it's that personal bias, that feeling, that emotional response, that connection you have with the rep that leads into potentially making an over purchase or the wrong purchase, right? Because I like Andrew. He's great, right? He always stops in. He always brings me these, my favorite drink or this thing, or takes me to a concert or whatever. I'm going to buy a lot of inventory from Andrew, right? Even if it's maybe not the best thing for my retail store, right?
Yeah.
So there's that piece too that I think is important.
Yeah, 100%.